Caradryan might be the most broken thing coming out of the entire DLC. He has this ability called the Mark of Azurian. As long as he has less than 25% of HP and is grounded, he can constantly drain away enemies' health by 50 to 100 HP per second with 35 range and infinite duration. Now 50 to 100 damage doesn't sound like a whole lot, but if we look at the most damaging spell in the game, the Fate of Buna, 125 to 250 damage per second, so 50 to 100 damage per second, that's like 40% of a Fate of Buna, and on top of that, Fate of Buna costs a ton of magic and has a time limit. This Mark of Azurian does not. So in theory, if you can keep Caradryan in the fight, staying alive around enemies at less than 25% HP, he will become the most powerful Mortis engine in the entire game, draining away 50 to 100 HP per unit per second from his enemies. Now, in this battle, we will try to do exactly that here. Of course, dropping Caradryan even on a Frostheart Phoenix mount down to 25% HP or less, that is very dangerous and he might actually rout or die. So to prevent that from happening, we are coming in with two characters. Sea Lord Aisling here with the Iron-Handed Captain, 100 leadership, and more importantly, Rally, allowing you to bring back routed units under your control and keep them in the fight. And on top of that, Miss Mage here coming in with Nullstone to deny enemy abilities, and the spell kit solely for survivability and tankiness. Ledriel's Shroud providing healing in the Overcast version, and a bit of Vigor Refresh plus immune to contact effects. While Walk Between Worlds with 55% physical resistance will be really handy, keeping Caradryan alive, providing a lot of damage mitigation without needing to heal him back above that 25% HP threshold. Now, for the army builds here, the rest of the army is not really the main point. A frontline of Ship's Company backed up by some Lothern Seaguard with Oceanids and Sea Elemental to provide some monstrous defensive support. They are quite tanky themselves, with 55 defense on those Oceanids, Sea Elemental having 70 melee defense, plus a ton of physical resistance, missile resistance, and more importantly, that immune to contact effect, making them unaffected by the Nurgle's poison. Perfect Vigor is also really handy in the late game scenario. And yeah, let's see if we can try and play around with that Mark of Azurian with Caradryan and annihilate. Drain down those Nurgle army, giving them a taste of their own Mortis engine medicine. Now, for the Nurgle army played by Flying Tackle, a very good player here, a front line of Pestigors and a bunch of Marauders of Nurgle with Plogers at the back providing that anti-infantry armor-piercing support. And in the skies, we have some Furies and a Vanguard deployed Pestigors, very much ahead of the entire formation there. One-toed Dragon with a few tanky characters here. We have a Keelsaucer Lord of Nurgle with Fleshy Abundance, Cloud of Flies, Stream of Corruption to do damage, supported by an Exalted Hero of Nurgle with very strong armor-piercing fighting power. That's basically it for the army builds here. Now let's get the battle started. Battle begins and I'm just throwing Caradryan at the enemy lines. I want to play recklessly with him because I need to get him low and trigger the Mark of Azurian ability. Now, my opponent is rushing forward, getting those Vanguard deploy units into position onto my flank. I'll be turning around some Lothern Seaguard to shoot at them in a moment, while Caradryan moving on to some Marauders, probably going to drop onto them any second now. Yep, going for one of them right there, trying to pick off some Marauder models and get some free damage in, luring in the Keelsaucer Lord on a Rot Beast, coming in to take a chunk health off from Caradryan. I'm actually quite welcoming for that one, because it's not a whole lot of damage, it's manageable HP loss. I'm just kind of trading some HP and getting him closer to that Mark of Azurian activation. At the same time, my other units are just not really doing much, moving slightly up and getting some arrows peppering onto those Marauders of Nurgle there. Probably better to switch over to the Ploger since they do not have any missile block chance and not much armor either, so it's more cost efficient to shoot at them instead. Anyways, Caradryan is back into the sky since he does not want to just stand there and take hits idly from two Nurgle characters. Probably better to just fight something else like these Plogers here, trying to thin out some of the enemy's monstrous threat. Oceanids are at the backline, they're counteracting the Chaos Furies who just dropped in onto some of my Lothern Seaguard. A very nasty stream of corruption, destroying some of my ship's companies, but Caradryan is here to help. While these Oceanids, they don't have magical attacks naturally, but there is an item on Sea Lord Aisling, the Sapphire Guardian Phoenix, providing that magic attacks to these Oceanids with their bonus versus infantry, annihilating some poor Furies. The Sea Elemental sallied forth, drowning some Marauders on dry land, and suddenly everything got hit by the Pestigals' Tears of Nurgle, including Caradryan getting slowed to a halt. And now Caradryan is stuck between two enemy characters. The Kill Sorcerer Lord of Nurgle is coming in, while the Exalted Hero of Nurgle is blocking his retreat. I do activate a chunk of his buffs here: Feign and Repulse, Phoenix Blade, Colossal Strike. More importantly, the Phoenix Blade providing that flammable effect, imbuing Fire Weakness onto his targets, and you can see he is taking a chunk of HP from that Exalted Hero with all those damage buffs. And yeah, the Exalted Hero of Nurgle has to retreat, and don't forget Nullstone was activated, so there is no healing coming in for the moment. But unfortunately, my left flank has collapsed there. The Toad Dragon rushed in with a breath attack, destroying some of my Lothens he got earlier. Didn't catch it on camera, but the Oceanids are there to stabilize that flank. Sea Elemental and the other Oceanids stabilizing the right flank there, while Caradryan now being stuck between multiple single entities once again. His health down to 2/3 of HP now, slowly getting there to that 25% HP threshold. Oceania still holding on to the left flank there, but unfortunately I didn't really micro my missiles properly, and a lot of my Lothan Sea Guards have been compromised, while the front line has been destroyed by a swarm of Marauders and Plogers. The Lothan Sea Guard has retreated, so they probably can start shooting at that Toad Dragon anytime soon. They're just not shooting. Oh, yep, there we go. Some arrows onto the Toad Dragon, chipping away its health. Caradryan now going after the enemy characters once more, as my Miss Mage and Sea Lord Aislinn are fighting amongst the Oceanids, providing some body blockers for my characters here. Nasty Breath attack once more onto the Lothan Sea Guard, and taking a chunk more of their HP away, while the Toad Dragon is gonna come barreling in and trample my Lothan Sea Guard. Unfortunately for my opponent though, there's not much they can do against the Sea Elemental right now. The Plogers are not fighting the good fight against him right now. 70 melee defense, and it's very tough for their puny 30 attack to break through, as they are slowly tiring and losing melee attack. Now Caradryan, moving out of that blob of Oceanids, deciding to challenge these Plogers, trying to expose himself and getting a chunk of damage from that Toad Dragon rear charge. This is the moment, this is where we trigger that Mark of Azurian. You can see that effect is on now, but at the same time Caradryan is on the verge of routing. Actually, he routed as he took way too much damage there. Nightdrale's Shroud upgraded version is keeping him in the fight, not actually fighting, but keeping him alive. And here comes the Iron-Handed Captain rallying Caradryan, and he just managed to turn around and start blocking hits from the Toad Dragon using his full melee defense there. And he blocks another hit from the Toad Dragon while doing that 50 to 100 damage to enemy models there. If we have a look at the Toad Dragon's HP bar, you can see that the Mark of Azurian doesn't do that much damage to single entities. It's like 5 damage per second against the Toad Dragon there. But against the regular units, it's gonna be a lot more painful, as they have more models to take that damage. Feign and Repulse as well, being turned on all his damage buffs. I'm trying to kill that Exalted Hero right there. And I need to turn on the Walk Between Worlds as well, because the healing has worn off and I need that damage mitigation from a lot of stuff here. Feign and Repulse, 20% physical resistance, and that 55% Walk Between Worlds. And don't forget, it is a Frostheart Phoenix, so the Attune to Magic is activated, because I still have a lot of magic left, because Nightdrale's Shroud and Walk Between Worlds are actually quite cheap as spells, costing very little winds of magic. So ward save 10% and another 75% physical resistance, 85% damage reduction, baby, and there's no magic damage from my opponent so far. So yeah, he's not taking much damage even from the hits of the Exalted Hero or the Toad Dragon. My opponent Flying Tackle here simply cannot kill him with all those damage mitigations still turned on. Here comes the Oceanids body blocking for my characters here. All my infantry are dead, it's just the monsters and the single entities now. But the Oceanids are a very impressively tanky monstrous unit. Caradryan comes back in for another charge, because he knows that if he goes back in the skies, he will not be able to keep draining the enemies away. You can see all the infantry are gone. It is pretty much just the single entities and monsters still in the fight. The Plogers are taking damage though. They have more models and they're taking more damage than the single entities per second. So their HP is quickly dropping, being hunted down by the Oceanids as well. And the Miss Mage though, being singled out and might actually be sniped out by the multiple characters dropping onto him, being knocked way out of that Oceanid blob, while the infantry coming in to try and help out, but that might just be the death sentence for them, as they're subjected to that full 50 to 100 damage per second. For a unit with less than 2000 HP, that's like, what, 20 to 40 seconds, and they will be routed way before they run out of HP as well. So all these Pestigals, Marauders, and Furies just quickly annihilated by that Health Drain aura. The Toad Dragon and the single entities are doing a little bit better, but The problem is Caradryan is still a very powerful, very formidable melee fighter powerhouse, and he is taking huge chunks of health away from those single entities. And Walk Between Worlds was activated earlier as well, just to keep him alive using that 55% physical resistance mitigation. Attuned to magic, 10% war save is still on, so he is tanking it. He might not have a lot of HP, but those HP are very, very effective. Ladriel's Shroud activated as well, another chunk of healing coming in. Just keeping him alive, not so much healing that the Mark of Azurian wears off, but just enough to keep him in the fight, keeping his leadership intact as he fights on and hacks down those single entities. Now the Mist-Mage has been knocked out and will be sniped away as well, Fleshy Abundance counteracting the health drain, but still not quite enough there as the Sea Elemental comes in and just knocks the hell out of that poor Exalted hero there. Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Nurgle taking a huge chunk of HP damage from the fire weakness, the flammable effect from the Phoenix Blade, and on top of that, Furies who tried to jump in and help out got drained down by Caradryan's Mark of Azurian. The Toad Dragon dropped in a nasty breath attack, but this time it is just the Oceanids, the single entities are still around, so not a whole lot of damage, and the Oceanids hop on over, more like scooch on over, and start surrounding the Toad Dragon, while the Chaos Sorcerer Lord has been routed and sniped out by Caradryan himself. Almost 5,000 gold worth of damage value all by himself, and he drops in once more, fighting that Toad Dragon, triggering army losses. Yep. One character, almost 5,000 gold worth of damage value, and 176 kills, with only Mark of Azurian as an AoE damage ability. Yeah, I feel like the Mark of Azurian ability is overtuned, way overtuned, having the ability to take down half an army by himself, as all these infantry, the Furies, and even some of the Plogers taking substantial damage from the health drain, while all these abilities from the Mist-Mage and, of course, Sea Lord Aislinn himself keeping Caradryan in the fight with the physical resistance from the Walker Between Worlds, with the Ladriel's healing, and also the Iron-Handed Captain to rally the once routed Caradryan there, allowing him to drain down the infantry, and of course having all those melee fighter buffs, doing substantial damage to all these Nurgle single entities, so it's not like the Nurgle army can just ignore Caradryan in combat. And my opponent was in the dilemma of either trying to kill Caradryan and activating the Mark of Azurian ability, or try not to kill Caradryan and gets killed by him in melee instead. He almost took down Caradryan, to be fair, but unfortunately, High Elves just have too many ways to keep Caradryan in the fight. As for the rest of the army there, the infantry didn't do a whole lot. Most of the Lothian Seaguard and the ship's company just got ravaged by those marauders, by the Plogers, and by the Toad Dragon. I didn't really pay attention to microing them. I'm just focusing on Caradryan in the entire battle there. One of the Lothian Seaguard got some good damage though, and the Sea Elemental plus the Oceanids, they are all very tanky monsters, which the Nurgle army doesn't really have any anti-large tools in this fight to deal with them. So they were able to really thrive in the battle there, beating down everything in their way, just slowly grinding their way through the enemy units and winning the game of a grind of an attrition battle against Nurgle. Well, as for the Nurgle army there, the Chaos Sorcerer Lord did quite a bit of damage with the Streams of Corruption and in melee, although the Exalted hero of Nurgle took a lot of damage from Caradryan. The rest of the infantry and monsters didn't really do a whole lot of damage, with the Toad Dragon doing the majority of work against my infantry blobs. For a bit of comparison with other Mortis engine effects, here's the OG Mortis engine with the Reliquary Corruption, 16 to 32 damage per second, while other units like Kukaf Plague Father are doing similar damage here, 16 to 32 on Pestilent Decay. Weaker Mortis engine effects like the Mist of the Lady is 8 to 16 damage per second, or the Incarnate Elemental of Beast, Incarnate Flock of Doom, 8 to 16 per second. And we can see the Mutila Vortex speeds, 16 to 32 damage per second. So yeah, even with a lot less damage per second, maybe less than half for the stronger version of Mortis Engine, and less than 20% of damage from the weaker versions of Mortis Engine, they can still be game-changing with the amount of damage they can do over time to infantry and cavalry blobs. While Caradryan here, 50 to 100 damage per second, that's some ludicrous value for a semi-permanent health drain ability. And on top of that, he has insane melee damage output. Feint Repulse, Colossal Strike, Captain of the Phoenix Guard, that's healing for other units too. So that's another thing that makes Caradryan really good, with no use limits and just a long cooldown. Phoenix Blade, also another damage buffing ability. So this guy here can heal other units, can deal insane damage in battle against other single entities, like against the Exalted hero we saw earlier, and can drain away any unit's health with that Mark of Azurian, especially in the late game scenario. Tattered units trying to fight this guy in melee will get melted in mere seconds. So all in all, I feel like Caradryan is way overtuned for what he can do in battle, and I think he might need to be weakened a bit. At least the Mark of Azurian might need a bit more restriction, perhaps hit points less than 20% might be the new threshold for the ability, just making the ability a lot harder to activate and a lot harder to get the balance between activation threshold and the limit of the bottom line of not dying. So yeah, this unit needs to be fine-tuned a bit more in the future. I'm not saying outright being nerfed to the ground, but definitely needs some adjustment to make him not as broken right now, because if the right conditions are achieved, Caradryan can absolutely dominate the battlefield, and as we've seen in the battle just now, it's not exactly impossible to reach those conditions. Anyways, that's all for today here. Thank you for watching this battle here, and big thanks to my opponent Flying Tackle for being my sparring partner with the Caradryan Mortis engine combo. We'll be bringing more Tides of Torment DLC content to you guys, so be sure to subscribe to the channel and keep an eye out for new video uploads. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich signing out.